Michael Wood, a hit in anyone's language. Now, 75 years ago, the world was very different.
1910, the dying days of the Edwardian era. The last time Halley's Comet came close to Earth. The world was comet crazy, yet many feared the comet. Some claimed it heralded the end of the world. Others blamed it for the troubles of the times. In Britain, the suffragettes were on the march. In France, freak floods brought death and devastation. Most shocking of all was the death of the king. Edward VII died in May, just when the comet was closest to the Earth. So, though the world survived, an era came to an end in the days of the comet.
In 1910, the Comet was also big box office. On Broadway, that year's Ziegfeld Follies show was called The Comet and the Earth, and composers the world over turned to the skies for inspiration. The comet was certainly something to sing about. Cantabile, take us back to the music hall days of 1910.
Halley's Comet, the people all say that you are going very far away, and for 75 long years we'll stay, until then we'll not sail through your tail. But it was so very pale, and it was so very frail, that it didn't do us any harm to sail through your long tail. Mr. Earth has waited these long, long years for his wandering comet love. But tonight's the night it again appears in the bright starry skies above. He saw her approaching, his queen of the night. At her he makes goo-goo eyes. At last she is here. How do you do, my dear? She greets him with glad surprise. He rolls his eyes and he sighs and sighs, but at first she seems so shy. Then she smiles at him, then she winks at him with a laughing roguish eye. Then he winks, please do, it is me for you. She is shocked, then laughs with mirth. I'm a comet, young, and I am not sure that I love you, Miss Earth.
Now, in 1910, the newspapers were full of the comet, from the day it reappeared in the sky to the moment months later when it faded from sight. Halley was front page news. Angela Gordon's been reading all about it in the papers of the time. Angela, did the comet figure greatly in the newspapers then?
Oh, yes, it was really big news. I brought some along with me because, you see, everyone knew that the Earth was going to pass through the comet's tail, and certain astronomers, no reflection on yourself, started spreading scare stories to say that, you know, the comet's tail was actually contained cyanide. So people were terrified about this, and I've got a hold of the New York Times, which is 1910, February, and remember it was 3 months' time that they expected the comet to arrive.
Right.
And here is this headline: Comet's poisonous tail. Yerkes Observatory finds cyanide in spectrum of Halley's Comet.
Gosh.
And then it goes on, cyanide is a very deadly poison, a grain of its potassium salt touched to the tongue being sufficient to cause instant death. So this caused enormous panic, and on May the 17th in 1910, just one day before the comet's expected arrival, The New York Times carried this headline: Chicago is terrified. Women are stopping up doors and windows to keep out the cyanide.
Gosh.
But women, I'm afraid, were really blamed for a lot of the hysteria. It was very sexist reporting in those days. I mean, nothing that The Guardian would carry now.
What else have you got there? Is
Well,
there
I
anything-
hesitate to mention this one, Russell, but the Daily Mirror in London carried this story about the ex-Sultan Abdul Hamid of Turkey, and it says, he is so fearful of some impending calamity from the passing of the tail across the earth that he has eaten nothing, Russell, for the past 2 days.
Well, so there's hope for me when Halley's Comet comes this year. I'll be as thin as a rake by next.
Oh, my dear. Please. But it was bad news for the dogs in Constantinople. According to the Times, my own paper, the authorities decided that with everyone's mind diverted on the comet, they took the opportunity of rounding up all the dogs. And it says the captured dogs were driven away, their destination uncertain. Some said they shared the fate of reactionaries and were marooned on a desolate island and left to die. Others said the dogs' skins were made into soft gloves.
And that's one of the good stories.
That's one of the good stories,
Don't
yeah.
they get any sort of more amorous or romantic or anything?
Oh, well, there's a bit of romancing, yes. The comet did bring some romance. The Daily Express said that, here's one, comet parties have become all the rage in the London suburbs. Under the headline, Cupid and the Comet, they report from one party, the handsome escort at her side led her away, where he wanted to tell her that he knew of 2 stars not in the sky, which beats the comet into pulp.
Oh, what a smooth...
But I love this one in the New York Times. It says, get rich on comet pills. Voodoo man busy dispensing sugar pellets that guarantee safety. As the scare is widespread, the sale of anti-comet pills is enormous. Purchasers immediately load their system with them, and then, with confidence, walk among their frightened and unprotected neighbours. Ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But some people were decidedly
Scotch
unimpressed
twist,
with all
yes.
this nonsense, including the Pope. And he went to the Vatican Observatory, and it says here in the New York Times, after observations, His Holiness expressed the view that what one could see of the comet was not at all commensurate with all the fuss that has been made worldwide.
He was not amused.
Not amused,
At
no.
all.
No. But what about the smells? They're my favourite stories.
Are these your favourites?
What Halley smells like.
What does it smell like?
Well, apparently, the Daily Express says that according to certain reports, again from astronomers, it smelt variously of burning vegetables, of a marsh, or of acetylene.
Gosh.
I know, but this is my favourite.
Your all-time #1 favourite?
Yes.
Is it?
It's a wonderful headline. Will you listen carefully?
I am.
Peculiar gaseous odour was not from Comet. Passing polecat caused Denver people to believe they'd gotten whiff of the comet. It's lovely, isn't it?
Oh, Pussycat Comet. I know it. Angela, that's absolutely smashing. Thanks very much. Now, we've heard a lot about the comet of yesteryear, but what about now? I bet you can't wait to have a close look at it with your little telescope and wee space probes, can you, Heather?
Oh, you bet, Russell. But here in this country, the wait for the comet's been enlivened by the race for the first British photograph of the comet this time round. And 2 of the contenders were amateur astronomers from the south of England who were dedicated and skilled enough to take on Britain's best professionals. And the race turned out to be a real cliffhanger. With the telescope poised on the patio, the high-tech challenger was Hampshire's Ron Arbour. His secret weapon, a computer he'd programmed to home in on Halley as soon as it came within range. 100 miles away at Burwash, Sussex, Ron's friend and rival was scanning the skies from the observatory he's designed and built next to his garage. Alan Young's setup's traditional. It boasts no microchip marvels. He has to find Halley the hard way. Cannily, Ron has moved his equipment. The comet will be low in the sky, and his usual observatory is too near the trees. This is the best position, though the neighbours' conifers could still block the view. Night after night, for more than a year, the same routine. First, find the comet. Once Ron's computers align the telescope, he'll be ready to take a picture. Alan has to locate the comet by eye. Ron's ready to shoot at the touch of a button. Alan needs a star chart to make the final adjustments. Ron's telescope automatically follows the comet during the 11-minute exposure. Whilst Alan has to track his by hand. Early one morning, everything clicked into place. Alan's wife, Pat, remembers.
I didn't hear him come in, and I woke up about 6:30 and looked over, and he was sitting up in bed. And I thought, gosh, there's something wrong, he's got a bad back or something. And then he was all smiles, and he said, at last, he said, I've got it. Very exciting.
The actual image, because to me it was marvellous, but to the layperson, it's just a very tiny, faint, fuzzy blob on the film. But being so far at that time, it's about 320 million miles away, so it's still extremely faint and very diffuse.
Incredibly, after searching for a year, Ron got his picture on the same night too. But who'd won the race?
After the morning of the 15th, I was convinced that I was the first one until I received a phone call from Alan Young, and due to our conversation, it became apparent that he'd actually recorded it on the same morning. And when I stated my time, it was doubtful that I actually did record it first. And a couple of days later, I received Alan Young's print, and in fact, his was before mine, by about 15 minutes. The tree delayed the setting up for the observation and probably cost me the first picture.
I would say that photographing Comet Halley on the August the 15th was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, I would say. Apart from being born.
Well, I love it when the amateurs beat the professionals. The underdogs always stick up for them, we British. But I presume there'll be plenty of pictures as the comet gets nearer, and taken from closer up, too, I hope. But you're expecting to do more than just take pretty pictures, aren't you, Heather?
Well, I sincerely hope so on this occasion, because this is true confessions time. To be honest with you, astronomers might be able to study quasars and galaxies way out in the depths of space, but quite honestly, they know very, very little about comets, which come nearest to us after things like the moon. The real problem is that when a comet gets to us, when it gets very, very close to the sun, it's all show. It's giving off gas right, left and centre. And quite honestly, we can't see what's right at the heart of the comet. And we're all hoping, we've got our hopes pinned on something called Giotto, which I hope is going to unlock the secrets of Halley's Comet for once and for all. And Giotto is this little device, just here. I hasten to add it's not quite as little as this. It's a space probe which is going to go right into the heart of Halley's Comet. Now, there are many space probes going to Halley's Comet, but none is going to go as close to it as Giotto is. So, as you can imagine, when you have to design a probe to go into the centre of a comet, you have to know a little bit about what you're going to expect. And as I said, we don't really know what to expect. For instance, if you'd lived a few thousand years ago and you believed old Aristotle, you would have believed that comets were things that zapped through the atmosphere. And actually, even more recently than that, people used to think that comets were just kind of assemblages of dust, like a swarm of bees traipsing around the universe. At the moment, the best buy model is that a comet, like Halley's Comet and all the other comets we know, is a kind of dirty snowball, a great big iceberg filled with chunks of rock which wanders lost and lonely about the icy wastes of space.